Hello, everybody, and welcome to Some Patches Required. My name is Zach.
And my name is Aaron. You sound like a carnival barker there for a sec.
Yeah, I was like leading up to something, and then I think I like really, it was like when the like music's like, and then it like drops and it's like dope, but I did the opposite where it just doesn't drop and it just keeps going at the same pace. Yeah, no, I let everyone down. The anti-drop.
If I could pronounce Skrillex backwards, that would be their style of music.
Yeah,
the anti-drop.
Basically. Well, Skrillex is like a weird mix of like screamo and like techno music. I don't know. It was a time. It was a, music of the time, I guess.
Certainly.
And another quick thing to all of those, mystery searchers and treasure finders out there. If you didn't know, Aaron's been leaving secret messages at the end of every single SBR episode that leads to I almost said Michael Flanders treasure.
No, it's the body of Jimmy Hoffa.
Oh, is that what it is? Oh, I thought, yeah. Okay. Well, maybe that's less exciting. But anyway, on a serious note, Aaron does leave funny little clips at the end of every episode. And as I've been re-listening to old ones, I noticed that they're in more than I expected. So just, wanted to make sure everybody got to experience those like I do.
Yeah, no, they're fun. I either pull them from, sometimes there's a little bit of B-roll before we actually start the episode that we still have recorded. And I'll toss those in if they're interesting, or lead to the body of Jimmy Hoffa, or what'd you say, Michael Flanders?
Yeah, I don't. No, it was Michael Flanders. I don't know. It was but dumb.
Yeah, no, either that or just like a particularly funny and or insightful quote from the middle of the episode. Just kind of toss those in as a little stinger. Shout out to MST3K for the original idea, even though I did not realize that's where I was drawing the inspiration from when I started doing it. But this is not why we are here.
No,
to begin with.
I didn't forget. I just went on a side tangent. So, no, I would never forget.
But I have my hand raised up in like a Hamilton pose. Are you really going to undercut me like this?
I am. It's my intro. Leave. Slams door in face.
Okay, I will lower my pistol. I will throw away my shot.
I will Aaron Burr. Wait, did he actually kill the guy? I don't remember. Anyway, don't kill me. But as always, thank you to all of the returning and new listeners of SPR. I would like to tell you all to please like, subscribe, and share. Especially share. We love sharing. Sharing is caring, as they say. And it really helps us grow. We support it. And also constructive criticism. We love that too. So please engage with us. Please. As George Bush's brother would say, please clap.
I hate it.
Yeah, no, it was bad.
You could say it with more desperation.
Please clap. That wasn't great. Anyway, we don't need to do 501 attempts at getting it perfect. I'm not an impersonator. But we've got an episode for you today talking about Ubisoft. Or as I started calling them Ubi because I was tired of typing out their full name when I was taking notes, Aaron. I just started saying Ubi.
Yeah. Which is another weird thing, not to tangent us, and I'll keep this to like 15 seconds, but I've always pronounced it Ubisoft, and I'm pretty sure I'm wrong. But I'm not sure that that's going to change the way I pronounce it unless I become very, very conscious of it. So if you hear me say Ubisoft a lot, I'm just being an insensitive pile of human. Like there's really no justification for it because I'm pretty sure the consensus is Ubisoft. But if you hear me say Ubisoft, that's why.
See, but I feel like that's a true like a potato kind of thing. Well, no, because potato, no one says potato. You just sound stupid if you say potato. But like it's not jarring on the ears, and I know what you're saying when you say Ubisoft. Like it's not like if you were to come up to me and say, "Oh, I'm cooking potatoes," and I'm like, "What the fuck did you just say?" To my fucking like there's a minute of like having to register what the hell you just said to me. Like if you say Ubisoft, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, you mean the game publisher, right? Like there's no registering, there's no hamster wheeling when you say it that way.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be different if someone pronounced BioWare as BioWare.
Oh, that's not how you say it?
Oh, no, it's actually not. Do you
Oh.
not enjoy the great Mass Effect games and Dragon Age games from BioWare?
God, that sounds like a really sensual cologne.
Oh my god, it does. By Savage.
By Savage.
BioWare by Savage.
Mass Effect by BioWare. Anyway,
Versace. Johnny Depp in our commercials.
Oh, is he in their commercials?
He was in Savage commercial. I think it's how you pronounce it. I think it's just like a clever repronunciation of Savage, but it's unimportant.
Unimportant.
But he was definitely in clone commercials.
Well, the last thing I'll say, just quickly before we dive into Ubisoft news, of which there is many, a lot of things have happened. There was State of Play, there was Nintendo Direct. I've watched neither of those, so that's why we're not talking about them. But also there was D23. And the reason I bring up D23 is because the most eventful thing that came out of D23 was that I saw that The Little Mermaid was going to be played by a black woman, and my thought was, great. The internet gets to be mad that The Little Mermaid is black, and what the fuck? Like, that was the only thing from D23 that I thought at all. I didn't have energy for anything else. I just saw that there was a Little Mermaid thing, and then I saw that she wasn't white, and I was like, we live in the dark timeline where someone's gonna bitch about this on Twitter, and you know that they don't give a shit about The Little Mermaid.
No. The two things that stood out to me when we talked about like potentially doing D23 as like a topic, like a full topic, were two things. One, you said Little Mermaid's black and people are going to be pissed about it. And I went, great. Of course they are. It's the internet. Someone's going to be mad about something regardless of whether it's worth being mad about or not. And in this case, in my argument, it's not. But hey, who am I? But the other thing was you actually broached the topic to me and then followed it up by saying, the reason I don't think I actually want to do this is because I just don't care. I think I said something like, the degree to which my apathy extends to most of Disney's voluminous catalog of content just is just like skating off of my back like water off of a well-groomed duck cannot be overstated. Like, I just don't care. I just don't have it. I don't have it in me. Well, and I actually have a weird Disney connection for the Ubisoft content later on.
Oh, I had my own intro. We could have like my own transition. We have like a transition off. A competition.
Oh no, this would be later off. No, we're not going to do like a rap battle
but with transitions,
intro superiority. You already shut me down for the intro situation, so you get to own this one, mon frere.
Well, I was just gonna say, well, before I get to my transition, I was just gonna say, like, I was on Twitter after D23, and there was all this stuff. Some of it was like Deadpool 3, and I was just like, I would enjoy Deadpool 3. I can't be bothered to see what they're talking about with it. Like, just, even for the medium or like the media that I care about, I just was like, God, I don't care. Also, spoiler alert, I think that this new phase of the MCU is awful, by and large. Like, it's just not good. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's an unpopular opinion, but like, it's such ugh.
I don't think I've watched enough of it to say that it's not good. What I will say is that it is unilaterally uninteresting. I think there are some interesting elements of, especially WandaVision was interesting. There were elements of Loki that were interesting. There were elements of not Into the Spider-Verse. That movie's great, but the Spider-Man one where Doctor Strange fucks up a spell. No
that,
Way Home.
Yeah.
That one, there are elements of it that are interesting. The execution is mostly good, but the movie itself feels still like middling. But other than that, I just don't care, which I think you actually summed it up better than we could have in another 10 minutes, which would be to say, like, I just don't care what's going on at D23. If I want to go see the movie, I'll go see the movie. If I want to watch the 37,000th episode of X Star Wars or Disney Plus show, I'll definitely just do that. But I don't care about the conference, which I imagine a lot of people think about, like the Ubisoft, showcase, which I also didn't watch live, but I did watch. But
Yeah.
it's just like, I just don't care. There's just too much of it now, and none of it has been interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not interesting enough to make me be like, ooh, I'm really jumping in my sheets. Wow, no, that sounds really gross. I was trying to say seat, but then I said sheet, and then realized jumping in your sheet sounds like a euphemism.
You're just feeling like a little kid on Christmas Day. You're like jumping in your gym jams on your bed. That's
I'm like,
in your sheet.
Oh my god, Thor 26. Oh my god, they're doing it.
My transition to Ubisoft was actually going to be in reference to The Little Mermaid and on the diversity note. And I just I just wanted to pose the question to you. I mean, you already know the answer because it's in my notes, but if you were to refer to a game franchise as a beacon of diversity and inclusiveness, what would Assassin's Creed ever come to mind for you? Yeah, exactly.
No, it wicked wouldn't. If you want to play a lot of games as a lot of white dudes who come from various countries with a couple of basically, I mean, like, just considering the proportions, basically like ethnic token characters and a couple of token female characters thrown in there for color, pardon the accidental pun, which I hope does not come off as insensitive, then no, I would consider Assassin's Creed definitely a beacon of diversity and inclusion. But I would not consider comments made by Ubisoft employees describing the fact that animating female physics was, or reformatting the outfits to fit them would be too much stress on the development team. I would not consider that voice to be the voice of diversity and inclusion at all. I would not.
So I will say, like, in counter to what you're saying, when I was reading this article from Game Industry Biz on the new Assassin's Creed plans, that's a quote from one of the heads working on this like new big push for Assassin's Creed. He literally called it a beacon of diversity and inclusiveness. And in fairness to him, Connor, I guess, from Assassin's Creed 3 is part Native American. Altair is from the Middle East. I don't know the name of the character that's from Egypt. And technically there are not white characters. Like, they were listing them off over and over, and I was like, wow, there really are. But even aside from the reality, like, Assassin's Creed does not come, like, it just doesn't come off to me as like a diverse game. Even if it is, I don't know what it is about it, but that is not what strikes me when I think about Assassin's Creed as, oh, the diversity. I don't know.
I would agree, if for no reason. I think I've actually played more Assassin's Creed games than you, and then we'll actually get into like the main thing, but this is just like the introductory segment leading into the main thing, a lot of which includes Assassin's Creed. But it definitely does have, like, the first game was set firmly in the Middle East, comfortably in the Middle East. A couple of the other ones that are coming up, which we will talk about, are set in locations that are not directly Europe or America. There are a bunch of games that, well, not a bunch, but the main problem is that none of them actually like feel like characters that are necessarily true to that culture. It more feels like symbolic representation than actual representation, because I mean, maybe that's just a narrative constraint that the Assassin's Creed applies to it, where, you know, a character is not necessarily defined by, which they shouldn't be, but defined by or influenced by their heritage. But yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely diverse. There's no argument that the game's settings and characters have not just been white dudes, but it's very hard to argue that most of them have been dudes. There have only been, I think, at this point, 4, maybe 5 games that have included female playable characters.
Mm-hmm.
In whichever setting each of those games were in. But generally speaking, it's, you know, whether you're looking at the games themselves or the trailers trying to sell you the games, the representation is overwhelmingly male and overwhelmingly light-skinned male, whether that's, you know, straight on white or someone with lighter skin but still definitely not like Caucasian. I would say that diversity and inclusion are not necessarily the things that I would most assign to the Assassin's Creed franchise. I would say stabbing, attempts at historical accuracy mixed with conspiracy theory.
I think there's a lot of really cool. To answer your earlier question, yes, you definitely have played more Assassin's Creed games than me, because I think like the last one I touched was Black Flag, and
which isn't an Assassin's Creed game.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pirate game. But where I'm going with this is like, it was initially a very unique and cool game. I remember seeing the trailer for the very first Assassin's Creed. I didn't really like the first one that much, I'm going to be honest. I'm much more of an Ezio fan, and I love all the games that he is in. But like, the game has plenty of positive things, or it did, but the diversity and inclusion isn't really like one that I would think of. And maybe it's because, and this is kind of, I don't want to like dwell on the diversity and inclusion part because it's not the main story here, but I think the interesting thing about it is that I view the setting as set dressing. It's almost like a prop for like, how are we going to make this game stand out? Oh, we're going to set it in Japan because people love the Japanese aesthetic, or we're going to set it in China, or we're going to set it in da-da-da-da-da-da-da. I don't know that they set it in these places for anything except for the aesthetic. And I feel like, you know, to a degree, that's kind of fine. But if you're going to like make this diversity a massive pillar of the game, I think just making it the aesthetic is a little bit shallow. So I don't know. That's the furthest I'm going to go with it. I just thought it was a funny comment that I read in the article ultimately.
No, it's totally true. But I mean, like, in terms of like diversity and inclusion, I think you hit the nail on the head with that. And I won't belabor the topic, so we can move on to our main one. But yeah, like, it's just not the first thing I would think of when I go into an Assassin's Creed game. Is like, I'm playing a game that is about, not even about, but like incorporates real diversity into it. I think the newer ones that have allowed you to play as either male or female have, in vastly different settings, even though they feel almost identical when you're actually playing the game. But like, just in terms of that, the newer ones I think have come a little bit closer because it's not always a male character, it's not always a female character, but it's just a lot of bland looking beardy dudes. And I will also agree, just on a positive note, that Assassin's Creed 2 was like a formative experience for me as a person who loved games. And I played through all 3 Ezio games, 2 Brotherhood and Revelations, like eagerly and ravenously. And I enjoyed the ever-loving hell out of them. But I wouldn't necessarily consider, just because they changed the setting, oh, it's Italy, and now it's Italy, and now it's Istanbul. I was like, I'm not sure if diversity outside of window dressing environment really applies as a descriptor to a lot of Assassin's Creed games. But hey, that's just me bloviating. But anyway, on to the main topic. That's what professionals say.
I think to get to that, and it almost kind of funnily enough ties in with the Marvel conversation earlier, but for those that don't know, Assassin's Creed is changing quite a bit. And they also made up this whole idea that there's been 3 phases of Assassin's Creed, almost like it was planned, which I kind of turned my nose to. And I'm like, y'all didn't have this planned. You were just like chasing the money, in my opinion. But
you
who
only
knows?
turned your nose. You only turned your nose. I turned my back and my heels, and I sprinted right the fuck away.
You're like,
as soon as I saw phases on the chart, I was like, you've got to be joking.
Oh, sorry. Technically, it's periods. They call it the first period, the second period, and the third period. But yeah, so in my opinion, all the good games were in the first period. But the first period, I guess, is up to Syndicate, is what they said. And then Mirage is the last game of period 2. And then period 3 marks this big evolution into what they refer to as a next generation hub, which is, I guess, what they're calling Assassin's Creed Infinity is the hub. And anyway, this is such a strange topic to even like summarize because it's so weird what they're trying to do. But what it seems like they're doing is there's this hub where all of the experiences are going to be for AC games. And it's almost going to be like a Marvel Cinematic Universe for Assassin's Creed. And I'm just like, Who wanted this? Why?
Well, so I'm going to run through a couple of things. Just to kind of like catch everybody who may not be like up to speed with the news, and if they haven't been up to speed with the news by the time they hear this episode when it comes out, they probably aren't that interested anyway, but I'm still going to go through it real quick. So, Ubisoft held their version of a State of Play or Nintendo Direct or an ID at Xbox or whatever it is, and they announced like 37 new Assassin's Creed games in the first ever Assassin's Creed showcase, which was also technically a celebration of Assassin's Creed turning 15. Because it's been 15 years since the first game launched, and they just wanted to, showcase what's coming up and also really just jerk off to what they've done before, to put it in crass terms. But they announced like 57 new games and other additional projects. So I'm just going to run through what I have written down. We've got the final chapter free DLC for Assassin's Creed Valhalla, appropriately entitled The Final Chapter. We've got Assassin's Creed Mirage, which is coming out next year. That will be a return to the original style of games in the lieu of Assassin's Creed 1 to maybe Brotherhood and Revelations. I'm sure they're going to be incorporating some of the combat from the previous ones, but it's going to be a much smaller scale title, and it will be starring... I can't remember his name now, but a character from Valhalla, one of the assassins from the actual Brotherhood. And then they have a documentary called Beyond the Creed, during which at least one person in describing it described it as a narrative universe, tying back into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Woo! And then we have Codename Jade, which is a supposedly AAA mobile experience, totally free to play. Totally you should have read in full bolded quotes, because has there ever been a AAA free-to-play mobile game that delivered on the experience without you needing to shell out a couple extra bucks? They've got a Netflix live action show. Ubisoft itself is partnering with Netflix to bring at least 3 different mobile games to Netflix's platform, which I think I described as the toy inside of a cereal box in our last episode.
I believe that is correct.
And then they've got a live concert series, a new podcast, another novel, and a webtoon. Plus, they have done what people have been asking Ubisoft to do for, I think, about 14 years. If this is the 15th anniversary, which is set an Assassin's Creed game in feudal Japan. And that is going to be what is called Assassin's Creed Codename Red. The name will probably eventually change, but that is coming out at some point. We've also got Codename Hex or Hexy, depending on how you'd like to pronounce it. I'm just going to stick with Hex, but that seems to be kind of like a witchy version of it set in, like 17th century Europe or something like that.
Well, we
And
don't
then
know. Did they elaborate on that? I don't even think the trailer was the
no.
least helpful thing ever.
No, it was basically just like a little Assassin's
Dangling
Creed symbol
thing.
totem hanging from
Yeah.
a Blair Witch set.
Yeah.
It was bizarre. Um, and then they announced Assassin's Creed Infinity, which is something. And that's actually been the hardest part for me to parse. Is what that is. But that's what we're talking about. If we reference any of these titles, we're talking about all of the stuff that just got dumped in one like 20-minute presentation about Assassin's Creed.
Well, you also missed Invictus, which is their multiplayer one. Assassin's Creed Invictus, which is a multiplayer game.
I didn't just miss it. They missed it. They didn't even talk about it during the showcase. No, not at all during the showcase.
Then, sorry, that got referenced in an article then.
Yeah, no. I actually am aware of Invictus, but my understanding is that Invictus is going to be somehow incorporated into Infinity, which, if you're starting to see Kevin Feige standing in front of a very large screen with a timeline laid out, and some of them say 20 ? You've basically got the right idea. They're trying to turn Assassin's Creed into a platform, not a franchise. It's now, you pulled a quote that said it was an industry, not a franchise.
Yeah.
It's
no,
not
a
series
like
of games
quote.
anymore.
Well, it's not. Here's the baseline issue for me is that the reason that I presume they're doing this, just to throw out some quick numbers, this is a numbers heavy episode, but whatever. Valhalla is by far, apparently, the biggest entry in the series to date, which it is the longest supported. I think it's the longest supported and also just the longest game in terms of length. And it also was the first to reach $1 billion in revenue. And they're hoping that all of Assassin's Creed can end up having a $2 billion annual revenue value in euros by, I forgot the exact year. But basically, they're putting all their money in this one basket because Valhalla did well. And here I am sitting, Aaron, and I'm like, okay, I understand, like, why you would want to have a, like, cinematic game universe for Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, because, like, the world's really cool and it's super different and there's all these things I want to explore. You know what I, like, personally don't give a shit about the world as much is Assassin's Creed. Like, are there really all these ravenous people that just want this much Assassin's Creed content? I just can't help but think someone looked at Valhalla and they're like, Valhalla made a shit ton of money. We need to turn this shit into a universe. And I'm just like, no.
Yeah.
Like, it's so close to reality. It's boring. I mean, it's not boring, but you know what I mean? Like, it's not Star Wars.
Well, I mean, I would actually argue that a fair amount of the, especially newer Star Wars, can become extremely boring. But so I've actually changed my tune on this because we had this whole conversation about, and I'll actually get to my point after I let you respond to this or elaborate on it a little bit. But we had talked about, like, you know, making an in fiction full scale MCU style universe, even if it jumps timelines, whatever. If you as a publisher have enough of these properties to do something on that scale that you think is successful enough to pump money into your own online hub or launcher, why is it Assassin's Creed specifically? And I'd be interested to rehear your thoughts on that one real quick, Zach, because I've actually changed my tune, which may actually come across as uncharacteristically positive after watching through this and thinking over it.
Well, apparently this is all part of a larger move in general to really, like, dive deep into 3 franchises, which is Assassin's Creed, Tom Clancy, which includes, like, Rainbow Six, and Far Cry. They really just want to dive deep into all of these. But my main issue, aside from I think you need a diversified portfolio, is just I do not think there is enough content in the Assassin's Creed universe that's interesting to explore. like there is in Lord of the Rings, like there is in Star Wars, like there would even be in like a cyberpunk, like if they kept making cyberpunk games, and hopefully they were a little bit more what I wanted, but whatever. Like that's my biggest issue. I think there's positives of some of the stuff that they're saying, because they're claiming that this new approach to Assassin's Creed will lead to more niche experiences within the world. But like, I've kind of thought about it, and I'm like, are there really that many interesting niche experiences in the Assassin's Creed world? I guess they added like all of this mythology and gods and stuff, but I'm gonna be honest, when that stuff got added, that's when I started losing interest in the plot. And I mean, this is kind of unfair because I'm very clearly just not an Assassin's Creed fan anymore, but I just don't think that Assassin's Creed has the staying power for the like this to be a worthy investment of their time. I feel like people are going to get like Marvel syndrome and be like, there's too much of this shit.
Yeah, for sure. I would agree with actually both points you made. I think there will be Marvel syndrome, and I think that there will be an oversaturation of stuff, and I really do think that the Assassin's Creed universe, at least in the way that they've been building it, really doesn't have the staying power of like the first major, not even the first phase, but like phase 1 and phase whatever up through Endgame of Marvel movies. But my argument for why this might actually be a good idea, and I say this as a person who one of the first games I played on a console that could handle games. So like I grew up with my first current gen console was a Nintendo Wii, and I remember seeing headlines on like Game Informer magazines about Assassin's Creed 2, and I was like losing my mind. Like, you can do that in a game? My system can't do that. My system can't do that. And so I was just this massive, once I got a PS3, I was just a massive Assassin's Creed fan for years and 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 years. And I would wait for the next announcement for the next game. And I'm thinking now that, in my opinion, with a couple of like little flittering glimpses, there hasn't actually been an Assassin's Creed game in a really long time. They've been extremely large, expansive open world games that have incorporated aspects of Assassin's Creed mythology or real world mythology, which is also just a kind of a weird addition, but something that's almost congruous when you consider that the entire thing is about like prehistoric aliens creating artifacts and then trying to salvage their own minds in the form of AI to guide humanity to a brighter future. Like, there's a bunch of weird nonsense that's been in there from the beginning, but that was also some of the most interesting stuff to me. But my thought is the diversification of the titles may actually be one of the smartest moves they could make, right? So if they're not trying to make one game that's going to last 4 years, and instead they're going to make an Assassin's Creed Mirage, which is AAA quality, dare I hope, but returns to the root of what feels like a traditional Assassin's Creed game, that almost makes sense to me, right? It feels like they're saying maybe not everyone will play every game we make, but someone who may have been asking for a return to this style for a while will buy this game, and that's maybe why we're selling it at $49 instead of $70, because it's going to be a shorter experience, it's going to be a more streamlined experience, but maybe there is room for this sort of experience under the Assassin's Creed umbrella. So I think, you can only change cities so many times, you can only change characters so many times, but if you can manage to dial into what made certain games feel really good and then provide those games to the people who want them, then you may actually be able to avoid that burnout, which is completely opposite of Marvel, because by design, most of the Marvel movies feel very similar. They're all meant to appeal to everyone who could watch every movie. There's only a couple of outliers in terms of, presentation, tone, emotional gravity, where, you know, if you miss one movie, it's this, it's that, but you need to be able to sell every movie to every person. So you're not getting someone excited for the next Iron Man movie. You're not getting someone excited for the next Thor movie. You're not getting someone excited for She-Hulk Attorney at Law. You're not getting someone excited for the Marvels. You're just getting someone excited for the next Marvel thing. It has to be homogenized. And I think if they manage to execute this plan of making Assassin's Creed Mirage, which is basically a return to the original couple of games, and then follow it up with Assassin's Creed Codename Red, which is meant to follow in the footsteps of Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla, and then eventually Hex or Hexy, which they've promised is like a completely different type of Assassin's Creed experience. How much of that is bloviating, I just don't know. But if you can manage to make all of those work within one ecosystem, then what they've done is actually take a tremendous creative risk that I almost respect, as long as they can actually pull it off. Because if they can have one umbrella that can house underneath it 5, 10, 15 different, completely different experiences, you've actually just brought Assassin's Creed back to being exciting. Because it hasn't been exciting for a while. I'm not sure they're going to be able to do it, but
I have a few issues with that only. Okay, so one with the platform. This Unity platform or Infinity platform is 100% just a way to monetize. It's just a way to, I'm sure, sell microtransactions between games and have a shared economy between games, so it doesn't matter which one you buy. There's going to be you know what it really is? It's metaverse crap. It honestly is just bringing metaverse crap to Assassin's Creed, and like, I just don't care. So with that note, I think that's a weird, dumb direction. But
Infinity is the only aspect of this that I'm fully ready to poo-poo. Like, out of the gate, I'm willing to at least give them a chance to try giving different studios complete freedom. Like, we talked in, I think, even our last episode about, you know, like the tyranny of King Washington and these weird little like DLC offshoots, even for Far Cry games like Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon, where they're just like, we just had this weird idea. And they're like, okay, we'll just take the core game mechanics and spin it into this completely weird genre-bending thing. And I'm like, if this is an example of them taking that from a microcosm to a macrocosm, and we're going to get AAA games from Assassin's Creed that feel very unique, that works. None of it needs whatever the Infinity platform is. That to me is just the only non-starter. And again, they're not going to execute on any of this particularly well, I don't expect. But Infinity is the big sticky wicket. Anyway, I will now let you finish talking and not interrupt.
Well, I mean, the main criticism I have is the Assassin's Creed universe was literally never meant to be what it's turning into, right?
Correct.
There are direct quotes saying that I found or comments talking about how Assassin's Creed was only meant to be 3 games. It was supposed to be the Altair and then Ezio. That was supposed to be it, and then it was going to be done. And then it was successful, and they decided, oh, we're going to keep running with this. My issue is that from in my opinion, narrative perspective, Assassin's Creed has 2 real factions that are interesting. It's the Templars, and then it's the Assassin organization. I can't remember if they have an actual name, but whatever. My point being, it's not like Star Wars, where in Star Wars you can have a game where you play as a Jedi. You can have a game where you play as a Sith. You can have a game where you play as a soldier. You can have a game where you play as a bounty hunter. There's all these different ways to interact with the Star Wars world, because the Star Wars world is this living, breathing thing where all aspects of it are different. All aspects of it are weird. You can put a game in, like, you could have a farming sim in Star Wars, and it could be potentially interesting. Assassin's Creed is such a specific story around such specific organizations that, yeah, you can probably do like a stealth kind of Assassin's Creed game that's not as combat based, but like the variety of game that you can make is so limited before you get to the point of like, bro, this is Team Fortress 2, but you just put Assassin's Creed on it because you wanted to have the name on it. Like,
that's Assassin's Creed Black Flag.
Well, yeah, that's a pirate game. It's not an Assassin's Creed game. So that's my point, is like, why don't you just make unique games without relying? I guess that's really what it is. make unique games and you don't have to tie it to this whole name and this whole story because it doesn't work well. Assassin's Creed, in my opinion, it's not flexible to have different kinds of gameplay. And also my other concern, and then I think this is really the majority of my concern with the move to Assassin's Creed, is we have to also trust the fact that a company that has homogenized almost all of their games into the same experience to the point that it's a meme about the map with all the icons and stuff. Like, do we really expect them to come up with these big different experiences when the only time that we've seen them do different experiences are on these little tiny indie darling projects? Whenever it comes to big money things, they never want to experiment. So, I don't know. In theory, there's some cool things. It sounds like if you want to work on an AC game and you work at Ubisoft, there's going to be more flexibility. That's neat. That's super cool for workers. I like in premise the idea that people are going to be able to make whatever kind of Assassin's Creed games they want. I just don't think Assassin's Creed as a world is the same as like Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, Warhammer, all these like worlds that are just so exciting in every aspect. Like, are we going to have Assassin's Creed, to bring it back, the farming sim? In which case you're just like, why is this in the Assassin's Creed universe? Like,
yeah. For sure. No, I think you bring up a lot of extremely good points. The one like, is this maybe our first like vocal disagreement on something? Because I do actually disagree with you about Star Wars and Lord of the Rings to some extent. I can speak to Star Wars more authoritatively, so I will choose that one as my main.
No,
but
you can go ahead.
Yes, I would agree with you because I think there's also a transfer of mediums thing going on here, where Star Wars was not conceived as a game universe. So there was not literally codified experiences in that universe. But I agree that the overall universe of Star Wars lends itself, because of its potential for flexibility, it lends itself to a number of different gameplay opportunities, right? So you could be a moisture farmer, and you could sell a Facebook game about moisture farming, where you could have your grandma pester you about, harvesting the grubs or whatever the fuck it is they eat on Tatooine. You know what I mean? Like, that's totally feasible. But at least within the mainline franchise, the series as a whole has proven itself completely incapable of breaking out of what is familiar and immediate. So there is no such thing as innovation in the Star Wars universe, except for maybe within the last, since Disney took over, there's been no innovation in the Star Wars universe except for maybe season 1 of The Mandalorian. Even that's borderline.
Well, to clarify my point there, I just want to say I wasn't saying that there has been innovation. I'm saying that it's open to it, because I know on the show we've talked about wanting companies to expand on these big worlds, and they just haven't. And that's what the frustration is I feel that there's the opportunity to expand. Disney chooses not to, out of whatever. I'm saying Assassin's Creed, I don't even think has the opportunity to expand easily. I think that there are, by definition, because of the story and the narrative, it is constrained in a way that a lot of other big franchises aren't. Like Marvel, even.
I would actually argue that the narrative, and this is a rare time you'd hear me say this, but I think that the narrative is actually less of a constraint than the gameplay. Even though they've done a couple of like very serious gameplay refreshes, there are consistent mechanics that you need to have in an Assassin's Creed game. There needs to be a stealth aspect. There needs to be this. So you have to build a game around though. That's what I meant by like codified systems.
Yeah.
It's so restrictive as like what feels like an Assassin's Creed game. I literally just earlier in this episode talked about what felt like an Assassin's Creed game to me, and what feels like a pretty well produced open world RPG that someone threw a little splash of Assassin's Creed paint on. And but I think that just taking like two pillars of storytelling, if you have to frame everything around two pillars, one being assassins, one being Templars, there is a way to set that during a witch hunt. There is a way to set and make the gameplay more stealth focused. There is a way to set that in ancient Egypt, which we've already seen. There's a way to set that during the French Revolution, which that game sucked shit. So like execution is one thing, but concept is a different thing. And I think the only reason that I don't think of Assassin's Creed as being particularly I don't want to use the word diverse again, but I will, but diverse in terms of gameplay specifically is because it hasn't been yet. So I don't think the argument can be made necessarily that there isn't as much room to conceptually grow on an experiential level, like an actual interactive level, as Star Wars has to grow on a narrative level. I think there is potential in the idea. Now, do I have any faith in Ubisoft's leadership to let that actually happen at the potential expense of even a minor or fleeting profit hit? No, I wicked don't, because you brought up an extremely good point, which is that they are so famous for copy and pasting mechanics that's why I was so like jarred when I actually listened to the whole thing where they were talking about like, we're really trying to diversify the way these games play, that I'm like, I'm willing to take, I'm not going to buy all of them, but I'm willing to take a gamble on the fact that they may actually be trying to make this work. That I will give them, I won't say a vote of confidence, but I will say like, I'll give them one raised eyebrow that is legitimate on this one, because if they can pull it off, then they could turn Assassin's Creed into something that could actually like change the landscape in terms of like, it's an umbrella now, and they could maybe, if they pull it off the way that I'm hoping they can, and I don't think they will, they could turn it into something that Star Wars could learn from, but I don't think they will.
Yeah, I just think like the change of setting is so often just set dressing. It's depressing to me that the mobile game,
that's going to be a nightmare.
Well, it looks great. If that is actual gameplay footage, it looks really good, and it is such a bummer that it is going to end up being, I can almost guarantee, a free to play game where there's all of these gross microtransaction mechanics and Lord knows what else. And I'm just like, why can't you just make a mobile game that feels like a AAA experience?
Sell it for $15. I was having this conversation earlier while I was trying to like run through thoughts, and it was like, it's a very appealing sales pitch to say that a AAA game is going to have AAA gameplay, and it's going to look like a AAA game, but on mobile, scaled for mobile, and optimized for the touchscreen experience. But that always means that the first couple of hours are going to feel like that, and then they're going to hit you with the funnel. You're going to start getting funneled in real quick because you don't develop a AAA game with no expectation of financial return. It just doesn't happen. So that game is going to be terrible. I have every expectation, and God knows we'll probably end up talking about this at some future point, but the Netflix show is going to be terrible. The Netflix game is probably going to be terrible. You know, it's their entire strategy doesn't fully make sense. But I mean, just within the construct of a franchise that I used to care about a hell of a lot more than I do now, but kind of on some level want to care about again, the idea of actually giving like full 100% effort to making the Assassin's Creed universe into something more like experientially diverse is interesting to me. I don't think it's going to pan out. I think that they may have accidentally made a huge mistake, but I would be more than happy to eat my words if I play Mirage and it's great, and then whatever the fuck Infinity's the biggest blunder of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because it just reeks too much of Uplay, Ubisoft Uplay, just like a launcher, but Animus themed. There's no way it's going to live up to what they're promising. And they haven't promised very much. They haven't even said very much. I don't even still know what the fuck it is.
Well, it's just like, and nobody, like, what problem does it solve? And also, I will say, so we did have another Ubisoft-related topic, but honestly, I think we may just run this one out until the end, because the other thing was, I mean, it's important, but not nearly as interesting, and I think it would take the remainder of the time plus some. But what I'll say about Assassin's Creed is it's just, I feel like it's putting such a massive meme on them, too, if this fails, because it's like, this is by far the most effort they've put into any kind of like campaign or platform, I feel like, for a single IP. If this fails, They look so stupid. They look so dumb.
I don't know if they'd survive it.
Well, it's just, that's the other thing. Thank you, actually. You just reminded me. We have an episode, I can't remember what episode it is, but in one of the episodes we talk about the fact that Ubisoft's CEO is trying to like fend off companies from buying them up, because Ubisoft has like not really been they've been in a really weird spot. Like, I don't think they've got any like truly amazingly strong IPs, and they're just so copy paste, like we've said. It's just,
yeah, which is why I'm looking at this as like my brain normally goes to great, more fucking copy paste content. That's what it's going to be. Which is why I'm trying to err on the optimistic side and say that if this is an opportunity for them to break out of copy paste, then that's incredible, and I hope it succeeds. But it everything they've done since, I want to say like definitely like 2012, 2013
yeah.
has just been like, we found a mechanic that worked in Far Cry 3. Let's just copy that in. Okay, towers are everywhere now. Okay, there's just a billion things. Okay, you got this mission, you got this mission, you got this mission, you got this mission. And it's so just repetitive, especially as their games grew in scale. It just became so boring and so not interesting. It just became perfunctory, and gameplay should never be perfunctory. It should be challenging. It should be iterative. It should be inventive. And an experience should never leave you on one thing for so long that you become tired of it. It can reintroduce it later, but it should never leave you on that one thing for so long, but just because of the volume of stuff they had going on. And that's not just Assassin's Creed, obviously. That spreads to like most of their games, like especially their AAA like open world style games. I'm not talking about Mario versus Rabbids Sprinkles of Hope or whatever it's called.
The real champion of Ubisoft.
Yeah. No. But you know, if this is an opportunity for them to break out of that, if this is maybe them actually learning their lesson, then I give them a big round of applause. I still don't think they're going to be able to pull it off. I'm sorry if I know anyone who works at Ubisoft. I'm sure you are doing a great job with what you're given. But
okay,
fuck.
Am I a cynical, awful person for this? Okay, so like legitimate question here. I can't help but feel like part of my cynicism too comes from the fact that if you were going to make these really custom tailor experiences that are different and whatever, maybe you shouldn't announce 5 different games at the same time and then have minimal gameplay, well, really no gameplay to show at all. And then it's like, haha, just trust us that these are going to be different in meaningful ways. No, like, it's going to be, what if the concern with me there is like, what if they fall behind on timelines and they're like, well, we said this is going to be different, but it's, you know, we have these mechanics. We know people like these enough. We're just going to make Code Red or whatever the same as fucking Mirage, you know. I
no,
feel
you're
like
completely
if they
right. I mean, like it reeks of like, this is like, of the 27 topics that we thought about using for this, at least 3 of them involved things involving this. Like, we thought about talking about a little bit of Halo Infinite, and a couple of other things, but like, yeah, you're how early should you announce a game was another thing that we really talked about talking about. And I think it might be worth giving 5 minutes to before we wrap up, because they really did dump games on us. We have no idea what they look like. We have no idea what they play like. They did not show a lick of gameplay for any of the Assassin's Creed games, except for the updates to Valhalla.
I think
they
Jade
did not show a lick
was at
of
least
gameplay.
in engine, which is the best we got, was Jade in engine footage.
Yeah, but it was an in-engine cinematic.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, yeah, it wasn't gameplay.
Yeah, but like, cool, it's still not gameplay. Like, we have no idea how these games play. We have no idea what they look like while they're playing. It's insanity. And like, how early should you release information on that? Because we talked about Halo Infinite and its struggles with getting, you know, the baseline of content that they had for the initial release out the door after a year-long delay. And I'm looking at these games and I'm thinking, okay, so you've announced a release date for Mirage. Do you have anything playable to show us yet? Or is this just making nice on what has been several years of either stagnation or failure outside of the financial realm, where people apparently are just buying Valhalla copy content, not copy. Oopsie. They're just buying Valhalla content like en masse. Like, what do you actually have to show me to make you believe that any of this is anything more than when Zach and I were making games back in college, we had this like long going thing where we talked about no one needs an idea person. There's no need for just like a purely idea person, and
A crushing
the reason that
realization.
the reason that I think I keep saying that I have no faith Ubisoft is actually going to be able to push this out in the way that they think they are is because they just scream as like big ideas with no reason to believe in the follow through. Like the execution is just it hasn't been there, and I have no reason to believe it will be there. If they can pull it off, it'll be incredible, but I don't expect that they will. I hate to be dour on that one, but
It just really sets them up. Okay, I'll make this my ending point because we're almost to that time. I just think that their tendency to announce things too early. The article that Aaron was referencing was about Beyond Good and Evil 2, which who knows where that is and what happened to that. I just know that the director left and he was apparently a toxic person. But anyway, they're setting themselves up just to be memed on. Like, you know how like Google's constantly like talked about is quitting on projects and giving up on things. Like, maybe they should have come out with more of a pilot for this before they announced this big thing. Because I've been in the corporate world long enough that, like, I know companies have these grand ideas and then they just stop because they're like, oh, we can't do this well. Forget about it. This is such an L if Ubisoft quits. Like, there's no good outcome other than a great outcome for them. They either execute fantastically, and this is some like, and I eat my words, or they eat shit, and this is just a meme. And that's ultimately the end of it for me. Like, I just don't believe in this idea for them. I don't think it's a good franchise choice. I know that we disagree on that.
I don't fully disagree.
Oh, sorry. Then I misunderstood. But yeah, that's kind of where it ends up. I just don't think this is a smart move for them. I feel like the smart move was to invest in smaller projects, diversified projects, gain faith back. I just don't have faith. That's it. I think truthfully, I don't have faith. I think this is the kind of announcement where if a certain studio did it, you'd be like, oh, damn, cool. But then I also think a certain studio wouldn't announce 5 games in the same franchise at once, like it's a Marvel panel. I don't know. I'll end on that. Pass it over to you.
Yeah. No, I mean, to clarify on, I don't fully disagree. I would completely agree that I do not have faith. I have zero faith in their ability to execute on this. My positive attitude comes more out of like aspirational belief rather than anything evidence-based. I think that this is the wrong move for the franchise. I think that they could have easily done this exact move without creating a Marvel-esque spreadsheet of their timeline, right? I think that the scale of what they're trying to achieve is out of reach, I think, to put it mildly, for them at this moment, especially, and with their reputation, especially. It would take a lot to engender faith in me in their ability to follow through on this thing.
Yeah.
My point is just that if it does, you actually put it better than I could have. You actually summarized my thoughts without saying them specifically, which is that, you know, they're either going to take this big swing and hit it out of the park and, you know, redefine what's popular and what's possible for a major franchise, or they're going to get completely eaten by Tencent.
That's another can of worms.
Yeah, it's completely. I'm not even opening it. I'm just saying it's either that or they get eaten by Tencent.
Yeah.
It's
NFTs are all that Infinity is there to sell as NFTs.
Oh my god, you know there's going to be integration, and that makes me really fucking upset. But yeah, I mean that's my last thought. As someone who, like, I wrote my college entrance essay partially on one of the scenes out of Assassin's Creed 2. The franchise in the past has actually meant a lot to me. It's given me some of the more formative experiences that I've had in games. especially way early on when I was figuring out what AAA games could do, but it's just not been able to keep up. And the leadership is clearly, we didn't even get to this topic. It's the one Zach was alluding to earlier, which is like all the allegations of workplace misconduct and everything like that. They haven't been able to keep up with that, much less their games. They've basically been stagnant for a couple of years. Assassin's Creed games have been feeling flat and not like Assassin's Creed games. I haven't played a Far Cry game since 5, I think, and that was extremely boring. So like, if the entire thing gets written off, then I'll still be able to go back and enjoy the games I loved. But if they can manage to make this crazy big swing actually work, then they may cause some sort of like weird revolution, almost like Game Pass did. Just within the game space, you know, almost like Marvel did in the film space. But for like one specific franchise. I'm not sure I'd like to see that future. Mm-hmm. But it's possible they could do it. Anyhow, that's my 10 cents on the not my 10 cent,
my
but my
10 cent on it.
That's my 10 cent on it. Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's a huge gamble. I'm interested to see how it plays out, but to be honest with you, I've been kind of emotionally divorced from the franchise for long enough that if it fails, I'm not going to shed a tear, much like with Star Wars. So that's, you know, just mismanaged properties.
But you know who doesn't mismanage properties? You know who's the best realtor on this side of the... Just kidding, she's not a realtor, but E.W.Art's pretty cool.
Yeah, no,
what a transition.
She managed our property pretty well, actually. No, that was a very elegant transition. I give you full props for that.
Yeah. But as I say, E.W.Art helped us with our wonderful album picture art, or cover art, or whatever I call it at that time. And you should check her out on Etsy, or perhaps on Instagram, or wherever you happen to find Google leads you when you type in E.W.Art. That could be a bad recommendation, but as far as I know, that's safe. So do it.
Turn on NetNanny first. E.W.Art, safe for NetNanny. But you know what actually is probably also safe for NetNanny, but extremely good for your ears? That would actually be Beach Girl, the provider of our incredible theme music, as well as the writer, composer, performer for a number of absolutely banging tracks that I have listened to on loop. I mentioned my Spotify recap always features Beach Girl, and I cannot stress enough how much that is not me bloviating or actually trying to do like an incognito ad spot. It's genuinely true. So check out Beach Girl at basically anywhere you can find fine digital music, Spotify, SoundCloud, Bandcamp. And if you can support them in any way, in a fiduciary sense, I'm sure they would appreciate that, and they are more than deserving of it. So check them out again. That's Beach Girl, wherever you do find your favorite digital music.
All right. And with that, thanks everybody for listening, and I will talk to you later. Bye.
And I will fade away into the distance. Goodbye.
I almost said Michael Flanders' Treasure.